This week on Templars Tabletop, we look at 5 alternatives to Dungeons and Dragons. Welcome back, everybody, to the channel that's all about making your RPGs AAA. Affordable, approachable, and awesome. I am so thankful to everyone that helped this channel break the 100 subscriber mark. And so if you enjoy the content, keep liking, keep subscribing, and let's get to 114 or something crazy like that. Now into the video. Dungeons and Dragons. It's 2025. Is this still a good game? And the answer is yes. This is likely still the most popular game in the world, and it's got some mechanics that are still beloved. I'd say the number one thing that people like about it is the fact that so many people play it. I pulled out of the archives an old 3rd edition player's handbook here, as I couldn't find my 5th edition handbook. I digress. But this game has got lots of great customization options. Its core mechanic is still fairly simple and easy to understand, and so there's a lot of things that are going for it. So you ask, why would you want to move to anything different? Well, number one, Wizards of the Coast, the company that owns Dungeons and Dragons, they've had a few public relations incidents lately, and so some people have soured a little bit against the company. Number two, you might have played it a lot and you're ready for something new. And number three, and this might be a character flaw of mine, but sometimes when something is really popular, I say, not super interested. But I digress. So what are some options that you might be able to use that are not D&D? I'll start off with a quick honorable mention that did not make my top 5 list, but this is Pathfinder 2nd edition. This game is a cousin of D&D, so it's still a D20. And the thing that is noteworthy about Pathfinder is that it's got a ton of customization options. And so you can spend lots and lots of time creating a character. You can make it exactly what you want. And I have done just that, very happily in my own mind. However, the downside of some of that customization is that the complexity is a little bit higher. So you might like this game if you like a lot of rules and a lot of math, but as a GM who doesn't have a lot of time often to prepare, I find the complexity a little bit daunting. So that's why it makes my honorable mention. Let's move on to the next item. The first one on my list of my top 5 is going to be the game that has catapulted this channel into critical success, and that is Fabula Ultima. This is a TTJRPG, so it's a Japanese role-playing game that's inspired by things like Final Fantasy. The things that are good about it is that it's got really cool anime-inspired aesthetics, and that it also has a really cool character creation system where instead of just picking a standard character, you get to pick from a couple of different options and really tune your class. It's got good flexibility without getting super bogged down in the rules. However, if you like the tactical grid-based combat that Dungeons & Dragons offer, you may be looking for a little bit more. And just a quick side note, thank you to everybody that liked my Fabula Ultima video. That is something that really helped the momentum on this channel. Let's keep moving on to our next list item, and that is going to be number 2, ICRPG, or Index Card RPG. This book is by Runehammer Games, and it's also D&D adjacent, similar to Pathfinder. What sets it apart, though, is that it takes some of the mechanics of D&D and streamlines them a little bit. The difficulty system is a little bit different, the way that you create your characters, and the combat is, instead of being grid-based, it uses index cards. And index cards, or zone-based combat, is now my preferred method of combat. So you will like this game if you like D&D, if you want good customization, but you want it a little bit more slimmed down. However, you might not like this game if you're used to all of the huge amount of breadth that Dungeons & Dragons have. It does simplify that. Also, the way that this game handles difficulty is that it sets a static difficulty for every room, and that can be modified by various situations. And so that can take a little bit of getting used to if you're coming from traditional D&D. But both of these are great books. Let's keep moving right along. This next one is a game that I'm currently actually running a campaign on, and that is Dungeon World. Dungeon World is a game that is in the family of the Powered by the Apocalypse. And so it uses a 2d6 narrative-based resolution system. And instead of having the standard pass and fail that is typical in most D&D games, it adds another option, which is pass, fail, or succeed with a cost, which is one of my favorite rules in all of RPG gaming. Now, as you can see here, the book is a little bit more minimal when it comes to layout and design, but on the positive side, the content that is in here is really, really good. And so I really like Dungeon World. As I said, it's the one that I'm playing right now. So if you like narrative games and if you want to try a new system, Dungeon World might be a great one to check out. However, it does take a little bit of adjusting, especially if the main game that you have played is Dungeons and Dragons. The system that powers it is a little bit different. And so there certainly is a learning curve. Let's keep moving on to our next list item, and that is going to be Knave 2nd edition. Knave 2nd Edition is a game that is by the YouTuber known as Questing Beast. He's nearly as popular as my channel. Just kidding. He's like the most popular D&D YouTuber. I digress. But this game is in the vein of OSR. So it's got two things I want to compliment: incredible layout and OSR vibes. OSR is a style of game that was popularized when the game first came out of Dungeons & Dragons, like the 80s, and so it is more similar to old school D&D. There is less customization, but things are very compact, and as I mentioned in the layout is absolutely fantastic. Every page is just dripping with information, and it's also it's high risk, high reward game, meaning your character decisions matter a lot. Now, you might like this if you want to go back to a simpler D&D and you like that old school vibe. However, one thing that it does lack in is the fact that it certainly does not have as many customization options as modern D&D, so you might miss that as a player. I've done a solo session of it and I enjoyed it, but I did, in the back of my mind, I'm like, but what if there was a few more options? However, it's very easy to homebrew, and maybe we'll talk about that in a future video. Now let's move on to the last item on our list. What is my number 5, what my top recommendation for non-D&D alternatives? Well, you might have guessed it at this point, but shameless self-promotion, this is my own game, Super Simple System, or S3 Lite. And so, let's ask a question. Does this game have the best design and layout? No. Does it have the most, well thought out art or all of that kind of stuff? Certainly not. I don't claim that this is better than any of the games on this table. But the principle here is that with this game, I took a lot of the things that I liked from other games and I put that into a system that I really enjoy. I'm also just really proud that I made a game, which is really cool. In a future video, I'll be doing a deep dive on some of the mechanics. My goal was to get to 100 subscribers before I did that, just to make sure that people were actually interested in what I had to say. And we'll talk about the mechanics. But my big encouragement as we go through here is that with any game that you like, whether it's D&D or not, look for the things that you enjoy and then try to find ways to add that into your system. My favorite part about the hobby is taking things that you like and making it your own, the creative side of the hobby. And so that is my top 5 recommendation for D&D alternatives in 2025. My question to you, viewer, is what do you think? What games did you like? What games would you put on there? And are you interested in making your own game and making something that is your perfect system? So thank you all so much for watching. Thank you so much for the support for the channel. We'll keep coming out with videos. We'll look more at all of these systems and maybe even keep that Fabula hype train rolling. So until next time, thank you so much for watching and happy gaming.